What would you say are the ugliest qualities you've ever met? People have different kind of ugly qualities.
Selfishness.
Selfishness. Okay, so you think selfishness is the ugliest one. I think there's uglier than selfish, because I think you're also selfish. I think I'm also selfish. I think our kids are selfish. I think pastors are selfish. I think Michael Jordan, he was definitely selfish, right? And it benefited the people on his team. Yeah. But there is a definition of selfish, right? What else would you say is the ugliest? So we got selfish quality as one of them.
Jealousy.
Jealousy. What else? I don't disagree. What else?
Hate.
What else?
Ugliest qualities.
So selfish, jealousy, hate. What else?
I don't know what to call it.
Let me rephrase it. How about unattractive? Where you're like, oh, that energy is just very unattractive.
Yeah.
What would you say it is?
I really get rubbed the wrong way by like heavy arrogance, like when someone comes around and talks about themselves as if they are like bigger than everyone else. And yeah, just negativity.
Okay. So I will say for me, unattractive is helpless, very unattractive. Blame, very unattractive. Guilt, putting guilt on others, very unattractive. What else can I tell you? Always feeling sorry, self-pity, super unattractive. I once read a book called Power versus Force. And I read this book 20 years ago, and it talks about the different levels of consciousness, okay? From the lowest to the highest. So level of consciousness, Power versus Force. I read this book 20 years ago, and he explains the different levels from the lowest level to the highest one. So right in the middle is when life flips to us actually having power versus we're forcing it. The lowest level of consciousness I think he talks about is apathy or grief, guilt, and those are the lowest level. And then there's desire, there's anger, and anger is the highest of the worst level, meaning like it's actually better than grief, apathy, all of that. And then after anger comes courage. Courage is, I have the courage to fail. You have the courage to start a podcast with 250,000 of subscribers and somebody comments and says, David, you suck. I don't like your interview style. Or you know what, David, I can't believe you had this guest Patrick Bet-David on. Why would you do that? Or why would you say capitalism works? You understand how hard life is? That's a risk you're taking. When you make a video, some people come after you. You're not going to get 100% positive comments, but you have the courage to say, look, at least I'm creating something, right? Then after courage comes neutrality, where you're willing to kind of see both sides. They may be off order, but then it goes to acceptance. I'm willing to accept you for who you are. It's totally fine. We're different. You're willing to accept me. Then it becomes willingness. I'm willing to work with you. Then reason. Why don't we reason together? See if we can reason. So there's these levels. All the way at the top is enlightenment, which we're not going to get to. That's Jesus. He's talking about like people who are extreme high spiritual leaders. Then it's joy. Then it's love. Then it's happy. Okay, so you're working with these levels. For somebody you're saying your friend who was, I don't care if I ever win the lotto, I'm still doing the same job. That's what I'm going to be doing, right? Like, well, things change later on. People have to just realize and identify for themselves what qualities are ugly. So if I'm talking victimhood language always, but you don't understand how I grew up, oh my God, I can guarantee you there's millions of stories of people that had a harder life than you that would exchange their problems with you. But you know what I've gone through? You don't know what it was like for me to grow up in LA. You don't know what it was like for me to do this. You know why I know that language very well? Because that was me until 18 years old.
Till 18?
Till 18 years old.
When the light switched?
Because for me, I grew up in a family where my mother's side, they were communists. My dad's side were imperialists. And my mother's side, they always blamed. And they always were like, but no, we're never going to be rich. I remember one time I was 14 years old.
Real quick, imperialist?
Communist.
Can you explain those?
Yes, imperialism is like, UK. Where there's a king, there's a queen. Right. Iran, there was an imperialism. And my mother was more, because they escaped from Russia, her family did, so they read Communist Manifesto. So they believe rich people are bad people. They believe rich people are greedy. They believe rich people to take their money and should give it to other people and all this other stuff, right? So I'm this kid growing up, and I'm like, oh my God, these rich people suck. And I had an uncle, his name was Luther Al-Khasse, who just passed away a couple of years ago. You know, I always thought this was a bad guy. And I'm like, man, I'm like, why is this guy such a bad guy? And then every summer, my dad would take me to his house once a year. He lived right next to Snoop in Upland, off of San Antonio. He had a 7,200 square foot house. He always had a blue Cadillac, the real cool Cadillacs, and a Jaguar. He was a Jaguar guy. Basketball court in the back, swimming pool, nice office, beautiful kitchen that would always be there. And I would say, if he's such a bad guy, why do all his kids love him? If he's such a bad guy, why do his in-laws love him? Why do his son-in-law married to his daughter? Why do all these? If he's such a bad guy, why is every time I go on Sunday, 50, 60 people there and they're all laughing, having a good time? He's cooking for people, and he was successful. He was this, he was that. So I'm like, I don't know, Mom. I don't know if I know this. And I remember one time I came home, I said, Mom, are we Democrats or Republicans? I was 14 years old. And the teacher's talking about politics. I said, are we Democrats or Republicans? She says, we're Democrats. I said, cool, we're Democrats. I said, can I ask you why we're Democrats? She said, because Democrats are for the poor, Republicans are for the rich. I said to my mom, you know what I told my mom?
What's that?
I said, Mom, when I grow up, I want to be a Republican.
Of course.
Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have no clue what Republican
Right,
means.
I just want to make money.
I'm just sick and tired of being poor and having people constantly feel sorry for me. Do you know when people bring stuff for you for Thanksgiving? They bring it once, thank you, because you're poor. They bring it twice. By the third time, I don't want you to feel sorry for me. It's an unattractive quality. I don't want you to look, you know the look when somebody looks at you with the feeling sorry look? I don't like that look. I don't think people should like that look. I think maybe a little bit for a season that you're going through tough times. But if it's every year, now you're feeding into it. Now you're believing it. Now your kids are starting to believe maybe we are victims. We're not victims. I'm in the Army, we're in boot camp, and all of a sudden this mindset of motivation, I'm starting to really feed myself into it.
You're 21, 22 around
At this time I'm 18, 19, because I went into the Army, I'm 18.
Gotcha.
And I remember one night we're in the barracks, and one of our guys he had a hard time because his girl left him, and he wrote him a letter. She broke up over a letter. Wife, that's tough, man.
His wife.
His wife, and we're in boot camp. His wife writes a letter to divorce him in a letter, and he can't even call her. So he's in tears, he's crying. I'm like, I don't even know what to tell this guy. That's painful, bro. And I go up to him, I said, listen, man, I don't know what to tell you. Here's all I can tell you. This is what I go by. If you and I can walk, we can talk. You speak another language. You're a good-looking guy. You're in shape. You take care of yourself. You have jokes. You have sense of humor. You can eat. You can hear music. You can speak. We can do all that stuff. We have all the senses to do something special with our lives. I said, it's all going to be all right, man. It's going to be painful for a few months, but everything's going to be all right. Like, this is what I'm trying to tell this guy for him to kind of, nothing you say in a pain moment like that, the guy's going to, but he's kind of going through it. You know what I realized eventually? I bought into that mindset. If you can walk, talk, speak a language, read, all the senses, hear, dude, you got every capability to change your life. Wow. So for us to buy into this, well, but what if this person doesn't want to do it? What if that person doesn't want to do it? You've bought into what you've been telling yourself, and it's now your truth, but it's not the truth. And unfortunately, your truth is stealing all your dreams away from you. And until you make a decision to want to change, nothing's going to change. Unfortunately, your mindset will most likely duplicate kids that also follow your mindset. Until one person has the courage to stop all that mindset, nothing's going to change for that family. It's not easy to do, by the way. Change is a very hard thing.